Are you thinking about coming to work in Sweden? Whether or not you're already in Sweden or you're planning your move up here, it is quite important to understand the job market. And on this video, that is exactly what we look at. I'm KB and I am a South African living in the north of Sweden, and on this channel, I share my experiences and information you might need to make the move. So on this particular video, we're looking at the Swedish job market. Sweden has a strong job market, but there's also challenges that you might be faced with as an immigrant coming to look for a job here, like language barriers and not really knowing which city would be appropriate for the skills that you have. So on this specific video, we're going to break down the Swedish job market. We're going to look at top hiring industries, going to look at some challenges or barriers that you might face, and I'm going to touch on all the information you might need to know before applying. So if this sounds good, let's get right into it. First, let's look at the overview of the Swedish job market as it stands. According to Statistic Myndigheten, in February of 2025, so this current year, they report the employment rate of people aged between 15 and 75, and they reported to sit at around 67%. So they also report that the unemployment rate has risen to 9.4% as of February 2025, which is about 0.9 percentage points from the previous year. But of course, even with these numbers that I have just told you, there is still a high demand in certain industries. And now that's what we're going to look at. So roles in tech and IT are seeing an increase in demand. So here we're looking at software developers, we're looking at cloud architects, we're looking at cybersecurity specialists. And here a junior role can get you up to 4,000 euros in monthly salary. The healthcare sector is also in demand for skilled, looking for doctors, nurses, and individuals in elderly care. So the engineering and manufacturing sector is also seeing a demand in required skills. And of course, sustainability and green energy is also seeing an increase. So Sweden is trying to position itself as an industry leader in green technology. We're seeing a growth in looking at green energy, climate research, as well as environmental consulting. There's also, of course, a continued need for people who fill roles in education and research. There's a demand for professors, educators, and researchers in different fields. There's also, of course, always a demand in hospitality and the service industry. So here we're looking at roles in hotels, in cleaning, as well as restaurants. However, these roles tend to require Swedish. So if you're a newcomer coming into Sweden looking for a job, it might be beneficial that you already start to polish up on your Swedish skills in order for you to get these roles. Speaking of Swedish language skills, now we're going to look at some challenges and some barriers that you might be faced with as a newcomer in the Swedish job market. As I've said, language or Swedish is required in a lot of roles, especially for roles which are customer facing. So if you are going to be in a service related role, you might really need Swedish skills. Another barrier is that some employers require individuals with some kind of Swedish work experience. So as a newcomer, you might not have acquired any Swedish experience yet, which might be a little bit of a challenge. So this is definitely something to bear in mind. There's also a lot of competition for certain roles, such as roles in marketing or business administration, especially for people who do not speak Swedish or are newcomers. These roles can be very competitive. So if you find yourself in that industry, you might really want to make sure that you learn Swedish as fast as possible. Another major barrier is, of course, acquiring a work permit. In most cases, the employer would have to sponsor your work permit. And this, of course, can be very tedious for the employer. And they might opt to get candidates who are already in Sweden. So this is also something to bear in mind. You're probably thinking, I don't really know which part of Sweden requires the skills that I have. So now we're going to look at different regions in Sweden and which industries tend to be located in those specific regions. In areas like Stockholm, here you may find roles associated to IT, finance, as well as the business sector. In areas like Gothenburg, you might find more industries relating to the automotive industry, logistics, as well as engineering. And if you're looking for more international companies or even more startups, you might have a better chance in Malmö. And of course, in the north of Sweden, where I am, there is an increased activity in the mining industry, as well as green energy, green technology, and the heavy industry. So if this is the kind of roles that you're interested in, the north of Sweden might be your best bet. And here we're looking at areas like Luleå, Kiruna, Skellefteå, and I guess Umeå. So based on some LinkedIn searches, here are some future employment or market trends that I can share with you. The first is like there seems to be a rise in more freelancing and consulting roles here in Sweden. And there's also a need for more specialized roles such as I've said, in the IT sector. They're looking more at cybersecurity as well as user design. And this brings us now to the end of the video. I hope that it was quite insightful for you. It's important to understand the Swedish job market before moving here and understand where your skills would be most useful or where your skills are really needed in the country. I hope this was quite informative for you. Please go ahead and comment in the comment section and let me know in which industry you're hoping to work when you move to Sweden, or which industry you're currently trying to penetrate in the Swedish market. So on the next video, I am going to have a step-by-step guide on where you can apply for jobs in Sweden and give you some tips on how to apply for these jobs. So if this sounds interesting to you, go ahead and click on the bell so that you don't miss that video. But please don't forget to like this specific video, leave a comment and let me know what was useful for you and what more you would like to know. All right then, see you on the next video.